Well, welcome everyone to our November learning community. I'm excited to have this conversation today. This is an idea that came to mind, I think, going a ways back when I bumped into Jill at Build Maine and thought, well, this would be a great conversation for Moving Maine to host about equity as we move into electrifying fleets and e-bikes and e-cars and e-everything. So we're excited to be here today. We will do introductions in a minute, so we'll have a chance to bring everyone into the space and have folks share their name and how they're connected to transportation and mobility work in Maine. And I just wanted to open up with a few words about the Moving Maine network. So our core strategies, starting with building a strong network of folks across the state who are working to advance access to transportation and better mobility. We're also focused on informing policy change, and we have a couple of policy work groups going right now that you can get involved with if that interests you. We are supporting better coordination at the regional and statewide level, and really what that means is, getting folks from different sectors who have a stake in transportation to be able to work together. And then we really want to amplify mobility stories, and so focusing on what people's lived experience is around barriers and how that plays out across race and class and the sort of different experiences that people are having in accessing transportation. So these sessions, the learning community, we've been going for, this is our fifth actually in the series. We'll take a break in we'll take a break in December, and then we'll be back in January. And our goals are to share expertise and across the state. And so a lot of what we're doing is focusing on hearing from folks who are here in Maine, but we also are open to bringing people to the table or to the virtual table from other places if you have ideas. And we hope we move people to action on transportation solutions and build relationships. So we are going to be hearing from Jill Johanning and Kohtala today. But before we jump in to hearing from them, and actually I'm going to stop sharing my slides here. I wanted to just go around the space and let people introduce themselves. And I jumped in and didn't introduce myself, but you probably have an idea of who I am. So I'm Zoe Miller. I'm the facilitator of the Moving Maine Network. And I try to walk and bike for transportation and use the bus for transportation whenever I can. And am just really passionate about making that easier and more equitable for folks. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to pick on you next, Hope, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. You'll hear more about what I do in a couple of minutes, but I work for Efficiency Maine as a program assistant, and we provide rebates on electric vehicles, and we also work on providing more and more EV charging throughout the state.
Great, thank you. Diane.
Good morning, everyone. I work with the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and very interested in the whole EV charging stations for a few reasons. But one is that I also am in the administrator for the Business Enterprise Program, and that is basically a program run by blind and visually impaired individuals who own and operate vending facilities. And we've had discussions at the local and national level, actually, with our partners with Department of Education and Randolph-Shepherd folks to talk about whether EV stations are considered a vending machine. So just interested on a few levels. And I'm also here because of my interest as a representative of the statewide Independent Living Council, the SILC. So thank you. Nice to be here.
Great. Glad to have you join our group here today, Diane. Laura.
Hello, I'm Laura Graziano. I'm the Assistant County Planner with Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission. I've been assisting towns with their transportation chapters of their comprehensive plans. So I feel like this is a good opportunity to get to hear some different perspectives of ways to help implement new things in the town's transportation plans.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Ryan.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. I'm Ryan Neal. I'm a policy development specialist in the Bureau of Planning at the Maine Department of Transportation, working mostly but not exclusively on public transportation issues.
Thanks. Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill Johanning. I'm an architect and access specialist at Alpha One, which is Maine's Center for Independent Living for people with disabilities. And I'm also a walker, stroller user. So that's my wheels.
Great. Thank you. Joe.
Prepared. Hello, I'm Joe Cooper. I am the project manager of Maine Council on Aging's Transportation Equity for Healthy Aging. I was formerly retired from being a executive director of a volunteer transportation and older adults and people living with disabilities service in Hancock County, Friends in Action, really trying to treat giving access and through all different means for people living with disabilities is a passion of mine.
Thanks, Joe. Keenan. Oh, we can't hear you. I'm not sure why. You're not muted. It doesn't look like you're muted, but.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Oh, great. Perfect.
Okay. We'll just try it this way. I'm an advocate with Disability Rights Maine, and I'm also a part of some of the Moving Maine work groups. So as a member of Silk, and yeah, I'm an individual with a disability as well. So I'm kind of curious about the whole EV movement in terms of access. So I'm curious about some of the things here. Thanks.
Thanks, Keenan. Carrie, you're up next.
Good afternoon. I'm Carrie Tyson. I'm the executive director here at Portland Downtown. We're very concerned with walkability, access, placemaking, those sort of things. Also have a multimodal committee that meets fairly regularly addressing these things. Forgive me, I am also eating lunch, so that may be why I turned my video off at various points.
Thank you. Cheryl, you're up next.
Good morning. I'm Cheryl Peabody. It's nice to see so many friendly faces. I'm the executive director of the Maine Statewide Independent Living Council. So I work both with Keenan and Diane. So interested on that level, but on a more personal level, a person with a visual impairment. So transportation has always been a struggle. And I'm a big walker, so I love being involved with this group.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl. Tim, you're up next.
Hey everyone, I'm Tim Sturdivant. I'm with the Office for Family Independence at Maine DHHS, and I manage the state's whole family service programs.
Thanks, Tim. Marcel.
Hi everyone, my name is Marcel Tagora. I am a community engagement specialist at JPCOG. My work mainly focuses on mobility for all, and then I'm here because I'm concerned about mobility management in our region.
Great, thank you, Marcel. Sarah.
I'm with Joe. I'm never ready. My name is Sarah Cushman. It's so great to see everybody as usual, and new faces too. I'm on the steering committee for Moving Maine as the faith representative through my Quaker meeting. I'm also a transportation planning consultant in the world of walk, bike, bus, carpool kind of things. And I always think of myself as an equal opportunity multimodalist in my home life. So I love to do all those things, and especially walking.
Thanks, Sarah. Marcia.
Hi, everyone. Marcia Bennett. I am the Operations Director at Western Maine Transportation. I was formerly the Mobility Manager. So now I'm that title. I'm both now. So I pretty much oversee everything that comes in from mobility issues up in our part in Western Maine.
Great to have you here. And I think we still have Craig and Ken, and then looks like Barb is joining us. So if you want to go ahead, Craig.
Hi, Craig Zerhurst, Western Maine Transportation Services Community Relations Director. And along with Marcia, we're doing the work that we can do to get people where they need to go here in Western Maine. I'm going to be in stealth mode on this. I've got about 5 different things going on simultaneously, but I am listening.
Great, thank you. Ken, you're up next.
Hi, Ken Capron in Portland, designer and entrepreneur for microrail system, one of the solutions for the energy crisis that we're facing.
Great, thanks, Ken. And then Barb, we're just going around and sharing who we are, how we're connected to mobility and transportation access.
Hi, so I am, my computer's not in the right place. I'm a community health worker with Maine General, and I jumped on today, especially because there's a presenter from Alpha One, but I've been kind of just joining in to see if there's anything that can pertain to community health workers or that, you know, I can glean out of the visits, the meetings.
Great, well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. And I'm glad, it's nice to have some new faces and some familiar faces. Excited for this conversation, and we are recording, so it'll be available for folks after the fact. So first up, we're going to hear from Jill Johanning with Alpha One, and I think folks probably know Jill for much more than conversations about electric vehicles. Excited to have her here today. She's a licensed architect and she specializes in accessible and universal design at Alpha One. And she's been, as part of the Independent Living Center at Alpha One, access design has been a core service for more than 20 years, providing ADA technical assistance, training, and consulting on designing facilities for universal access. So we're so lucky to have Jill here in Maine as a resource, and her background in focusing on this is just amazing. So I'm sure Jill will have you back for some other aspect of the topic, but today we're excited to have her talk about electric vehicles and charging. I think what I'll probably do is I'll just also introduce Hope right now, and then we can flow we'll have Jill go, and then we'll go to Hope, and then we'll go into discussion. And I think I would encourage folks to, as questions pop up for them, feel free to put them in the chat, and then we'll hold on to them and discuss them as a group versus having a side conversation in the chat, but feel free to pop them in there. So excited to have Hope with us today, who's a program assistant with Efficiency Maine and has been coming to the table with us for a while. So it's been great to see your face. She's working on projects related to electric vehicles and low income folks at Efficiency Maine, and their team is very interested in ways that Efficiency Maine can help support community organizations, nonprofits, businesses, and others. And I think it's, I know that part of what we've had come up are these, questions about how do we get more extensive rebates for things like e-bikes. And so we're excited to have some of that conversation today, hearing about what's available and kind of where we're headed. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jill. And actually I didn't test to make sure. Are you able to share your slides, or do I need to do that?
Yeah, it says not yet.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
All right. How does that work? Can everybody see that okay? Okay. All right, we did introductions and then, so I'll skip over this part. For those of you that don't know me or haven't worked with me, just a reminder that Alpha One is the main affiliate of the New England ADA Center. So we are one of 10 regions across the country to help with ADA technical assistance. So we do education, training, outreach, and we are always adding new stuff like EV charging stations. So if you call, email, happy to try and answer questions to try and address new technology and new things coming out. So thank you for inviting me here to talk about electric vehicle charging stations. Talking about EV bikes and scooters, that's a whole nother conversation, but maybe we'll get to it at the end. But for today, I just wanted to focus on charging stations because this summer, the Access Board, who makes the guides and standards for the ADA, issued a 38-page guide on accessible EV charging stations. So that tells me that it's pretty important information that we need to know. All right, so the basic understanding for EV charging stations that even though there is no requirements for EV charging stations in the ADA standards, regulated entities must still ensure that they're accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities. So in the top left-hand corner is an image graphic from the US Access Board that shows you a typical parking lot. On the right-hand side are your standard accessible parking spaces with access aisles by the entrance. And then over on the left is your new EV charging stations, which also provide an accessible route to the entrance. So hopefully these guides will help prevent any changes or installations like the one in the bottom left-hand corner, which you have a Tesla charging station mounted between some lovely porta potties on a dirt parking lot. So the big issue is parking versus EV charging. With EV charging, you need maneuverability around the entire electric vehicle. The guide states that EV charging requires drivers with disabilities to exit their vehicle, transverse to the charger, and carry the connector back to their vehicle charging inlet, which may be on the opposite side of where they enter or exit the vehicle. And that's the key part that I take away from it. These are drivers, so if they're not drivers, supposedly they can park in accessible parking that is somewhere else on site. But because our EV charging or EV vehicles are so different currently, you don't know where that EV plug-in is going to be and which side the driver gets in or out on. So this diagram on the left-hand side shows a accessible charging space with an access aisle. There's yellow showing the different route that needs to be cleared for someone to get out of their vehicle, around their vehicle, and to the different charging locations, and also over to the charger. So once you've got it on your site, then you've got all these other ADA requirements that I just want to make sure municipalities, planners, businesses are aware of once you add these to your site. So it includes your surface requirements. So that's firm, stable, slip resistant. That's your slope of 2%. You've got your clear floor spaces at the units. Here on the image on the left are two examples of charging stations of your 30 by 48 inch clear floor space or 30 by 60. It all depends where you put the bollards, where it's located. You have the reach range. You have to be able to get to the units within the the 48 inch maximum reach range. Operable parts is a key one because even the controls that you unhook from the unit cannot require grasping, pinching, or twisting of the wrist, which might be tricky, making sure what you are speccing or what you're providing at the accessible charging station. Then you have the accessible route, which covered earlier, that you have to get from this space to the trail, to the business entrance, whatever it may be. You have accessible parking requirements also provided at the site. Signs, this is one where they don't actually want you putting accessible parking signs here because it's not actually parking, it's charging. And then the interesting topic of fare machines. Now you have the communication requirements, including for people with visual disabilities, which is the interesting part that still needs to be addressed for kiosks, which is coming out. So that's another piece. So then the big question is the number. So again, there are no standards yet, like the ADA parking spaces, but the guide does recommend designing 2 EV charging spaces with accessible mobility features. So that depends on how many you have, is what is reasonable number. And then there's also a suggestion that some states are using signage that says use last. So where you have the accessible mobility charging stations, you would put signage to encourage drivers to use those spaces last, so they'd be available for somebody with a mobility disability if they need it. So what does an accessible mobility charging space look like or require? So here's an image on the left. That is the closest one that I've found so far. This is not in the state of Maine, but somewhere in the Northeast. So it requires an 11 by 20 foot space, an adjoining 5-foot access aisle, clear floor space at the same level as the vehicle space with the unobstructed side reach, and accessible operable parts. So again, this image on the left has the 5-foot access aisle, the clear route to the operable parts. I'd have to go back and measure to see if they are within the 48 inches for the controls to the screen. This image gives you a little bit of an idea of what one looks like. So for communication, have to keep in mind that all EV chargers should have accessible communication features and operable parts. So this is for people that don't have mobility disabilities, still need to be able to use and operate the machine in an effective way. Other considerations to take into account is lighting at the EV charging stations where you are placing them. If you're doing any shelters, which I haven't seen in Maine yet, but maybe we're working on it and maybe other states are doing it. Other new innovation that's coming along, alterations. When you have an existing parking facility, you cannot use existing accessible parking spaces. You have to find new ones or relocate accessible parking spaces. Alterations are tricky. There's also guidance on public rights of way. So if any community is looking at putting in EV charging stations right on the street, there is lots of design guidance in the guide. Also drive-through stations, there's guidance on that, if anyone's talking about that. Again, this is just a very quick introduction of the key concepts of what is in the guide. And I'd really encourage anyone to go through the guide, to take a look at it. Especially specific on what you're doing for your scope in your community. And then finally, something that's not in the guide is snow. We are Maine, so you cannot install your EV charging station to account for giant snowbanks, as much as that would be nice. So again, you also have to have a plan. How are you going to keep these clear and accessible during the winter? So just another thing to keep that in mind as you're designing the layout of where it goes, where the bollards go, where the route is. Snow is a huge issue for installation of where we go. So that was really quick and short version. I hope I touched on a little bit of everything to kind of give you an idea that once you add these to a site, access can get pretty detailed very quickly. And I think people just need to keep that in mind when they're just putting them in a site or considering where the electrical power is, that I've got to be able to get to them, from them. I got to reach them. I've got to get my car around them. So it takes a lot of coordination and planning to make sure it's inclusive for everybody. So.
Thank you so much, Jill. So we'll move into hearing from Hope now, and I'm making you co-host right now. And I know I already have a bunch of questions that I'm prepared to ask. So please, note those down, note down your questions or throw them into the chat. Hope, you can go ahead and.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to try to share now. Can everyone see this? Can everyone see the screen? Awesome. Great. Well, thank you, Jill, for sharing. That was great to hear. We're looking into making sure that when people do install a level 2 charger or level 3, that people are aware. At least right now we have signage is necessary in order for people to install their chargers, but just to keep looking at the ADA guidelines and what you've provided is great. And thank you, Zoe, for having me today. So I'm just going to go through the electric vehicle initiatives that we have at Efficiency Maine. And I'll be talking about charging and then also our EV rebates that we provide for low and moderate income people alongside nonprofits, government entities, and some other places as well. So I'll get right into it. So if you don't know who Efficiency Maine is, we're a quasi-state agency that runs the state's energy efficiency programs. So we do a lot of things, and one of our big ones is we provide rebates, financing, tools, and a database of independent installers. We're funded by a bunch of different sources, and some of that includes electric and natural gas ratepayers, the Regional Green Gas Initiative, ISO New England Grid, grants, and some other sources as well. And just for our company structure, we have a board appointed by the governor that's confirmed by the legislator. So I just want to go quickly through some EV charging basics. There's a lot of lingo in the EV world, so I just wanted to kind of give you at least the basics that we know of. So there's level 1, level 2, and level 3 chargers. A level 1 is your slowest charger. This is usually used residentially. It's just that typical outlet that you see in your home. So that's typically a trickle charge is what we call. So it adds about 5 miles per hour to your EV. So this is typically not great if your battery's on empty and you want to get somewhere. But sometimes it's a good option for people if they're only traveling, 30 miles or less in a day, or if they have a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle that only has 20 to 30 miles of range anyways. And then there's a level 2 charger. This is faster, and it's typically uses the same power input as a dryer outlet. And this charge time is faster. It's usually 25 miles per hour or 25 miles per hour of charge. And you can get a charge in about 7 hours. And then this can be used both in workplace charging and also residentially as well. And then level 3 is those big chargers that you see on the highway. And we funded projects throughout the state at Kennebunk and West Gardner and some other places as well. You don't typically see these chargers at, people's homes because they cost upwards of, $100,000, $200,000. But these are those fast chargers that will get your car from A to B, and you can get 100 to 200 plus miles of charge within 30 minutes. So that's just the basics of the charging world. So I just want to talk a little bit about our EV charging initiatives. So we at Efficiency Maine have funded a lot of these projects throughout the state. If you see the orange and blue solid dots, those are the ones that we have funded. Alongside the more faded ones, those are the other stations throughout Maine. And then the dots with the orange outline are stations that are under construction and are coming soon. And if I toggle to the next slide, you can see that from March to September, there's been an increase in charging stations. So this is just making it more and more easier for people to be able to get a charge in a rural area, which is great news. And we can see that there's more stations that aren't funded by Efficiency Maine that just keep popping up as well, which is great to see. So I just want to talk a little bit about current and upcoming opportunities if you work for the government or you are have a business and you're looking to install some level 2 chargers. So right now we have an FON open. It's for rural level 2 chargers. So this means that if you are outside of Cumberland and York County, or I think the Auburn Lewiston area as well, you can apply to get up to $7,000 per plug for a level 2 charger if you are a local or tribal government or a public library. And if you're a business, you can get up to $5,000. per plug, and this is up to 4 plugs. So if you are a government or tribal government or a public library, you can get up to $28,000 to fund one of these projects. And then if you're a private business, you're able to get up to 20,000. So it's a great deal, and the deadline has been extended to January 17th. And we're having applications come in at this moment, which is great to see, to just continue to expand. So then we also have a phase 4 fast charging RFP that's open as well. And this is for the Aroostook County and the eastern counties as well, which is Washington County, just to promote more and more charging options for people so that they're able to go up to Aroostook County and not worry about not having enough charge. I talked to a Canadian the other day, and they were saying that they're scared to drive through northern Maine because they don't know if they're going to make it down to Bangor. So these are very important. And then we have some additional DC fast charging options as well for funding, and some more level 2 in the coming months. So stay tuned. I just want to talk briefly about our alternative fuel EV corridors. This is just showing the stations that are necessary to, excuse me, meet our goals of the National EV Infrastructure Program. So for these highway routes that you see all throughout Maine, if you see those numbers in parentheses, that just shows the amount of chargers needed to meet the every 50-mile requirement that the NEVI plan, or the National Infrastructure Program, has asked for us. So this is just to make sure, again, that those people are able to get those charges when they're traveling up to eastern or northern Maine or even western Maine. So now I'm just going to talk briefly about our rebates for vehicles. So right now, these are the rebates that we offer for individuals or residential customers. So we have an any income rebate, a moderate income, and a low income rebate. The moderate income rebate was actually announced back in July, so it's still pretty due. And we've raised the rates for, or raised the amount for low income as well, up to $7,500 for battery electric vehicles, which is great. And just a few other things is these rebates are given at the point of sale, or they're an instant rebate. So we work with participating Maine dealers. And so when you are looking to buy an EV, you can go to a participating Maine dealer and you're able to get that rebate instantly. You don't have to mail anything in. So just making it more and more easy for the customer to decide to buy an EV. And then if you're looking to buy a vehicle such as a Tesla or a Polestar or a Rivian, we have mail-in rebates for that because they don't have a physical location in Maine. And also some of these BEVs and PHEVs, which I forgot to mention, there's another whole lingo thing of the EV world, but a battery electric vehicle is one that's run completely on just electricity versus a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, which is run on both gas and electricity. And there's also hybrids as well. And that is a car that we don't rebate because that's a fully gas vehicle and you just have the electricity runs off of the gas. So that's a vehicle that we don't rebate at this time. And just another thing to note too is for our used PHEV and BEVs, low income individuals are able to get a rebate if they were looking to buy a used vehicle. So just going to go quickly through for qualifying for moderate and low income rebates. For moderate income qualification, you need to do a pre-approval form, and you just need to send in a tax return transcript and we'll review it. And if you have an AGI of 70,000 or less, if you filed individually, or 100,000 if you filed jointly, you'll be able to receive a higher or an enhanced rebate. And then same with the low income qualifications. You go online to our form, and if you participate in any of the following programs below, which is the Home Energy Assistance Program, SNAP, ANIF, or Maine Care, you're able to get that enhanced rebate as well. So just making it easier and easier for customers to be able to choose an electric vehicle. And then just again, this is just show that when you go to the dealership, you need to show that pre-approval letter. And if you don't, you're still able to receive a rebate from Efficiency Maine. It's just a lower rebate. It's the any income rebate. And then just want to talk briefly, if anybody is in the government or tribal government, we just have a few different rebate levels that are different, and you just need to get pre-approval as well. And same with select Maine nonprofits. They just need to be listed in the 211 Maine directory. And with these, we don't offer any level 2 chargers for residential's rebates, but we do for Maine nonprofits and government entities. And then I just want to talk briefly about business fleets. I know some people in this group do some ride sharing stuff. And so right now we have a limited time EV incentive on cars and pickup trucks and also commercial vans as well. We don't currently offer, or there's no eligible vehicles for medium-sized passenger vans that could qualify for a commercial van right now, just cargo vans. But these are great rebates to take advantage of if you're looking to add some to your fleet. And just as a reminder, cars and pickup trucks, for that rebate, you must have a fleet of 5 or more vehicles registered in Maine. And just as a note too, if you don't have 5 or more vehicles registered in Maine, we still do have rebates for you as a business. You just need to be in good standing in Maine. So just going to touch briefly on some resources that we have for both people who own an EV or are looking to buy an EV. So this is just a participating dealer list. We have dealers all throughout the state that work with us, and they're the ones who provide that instant rebate. And then just finding public chargers as well. This is another resource on our website as well. We have a list of apps that you can use if you own an EV to find a charger quickly. And before I wrap up too, we don't currently offer rebates for e-bikes. That's just something we haven't looked into yet, or we've been talking about it, but it just hasn't been a part of our program yet. But I know that South Portland right now offers rebates for e-bikes. And I forget what the amounts are, but if you're looking to buy an e-bike and you live in South Portland, there's options alongside. They match our rebates for electric vehicles. So that's it. If you have any questions, you can email info@efficiencymaine.com or ev@efficiencymaine.com, and our call center number is below, and you can use that to get in contact with us as well. So thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks so much, Hope. So I know I had tons of questions pop into my head, but I want to make space for other folks. So as far as the PowerPoints, yes, I'll be sending those out to everyone who's on our learning community list. And we'll also have the recording available on our YouTube channel once I get a chance to upload that. Does anybody want to start us off with a question?
So this is a somewhat random question and only maybe partially related to some of the things we're talking about, Jill and others. But this is the thing we're talking about here in downtown. And it's kind of new, which is e-bike parking. It's a different deal than, at least in our minds, and in some of the conversations we've had, standard bike hitches, because those bikes are, hot commodities in more ways than one. We hadn't quite figured that out yet, but I just sort of would like to pose that to the group for input, thoughts, perspective. But not at once, not everybody at once.
Well, I'll jump in. This is Zoe, and I guess is your thinking that there's a need for more secure parking? And yeah, well, I know that there's been, I don't know where this is at, but that historically there was a conversation about placing some covered or like indoor public bike parking in downtown Portland, and given, you know, so it's like named in several plans as a need and as a way to encourage more people to bike. And seems like good timing to bring that up with all the infrastructure money that's on the table right now. So I guess my thought would be to find out, you know, is that like where, you know, knowing that it's in plans, is there then capacity within the city or through PACs to make that happen? I've seen such cool covered bike parking in other places, and like I amongst my many photos I've, you know, from trips, snap pictures of some of the cool bike parking that I've seen around the country, and looked at it longingly, wishing we had that here in Maine.
So I'll just add, Carrie, that just a reminder that if you provide it, then it has to be accessible. So that means you have to be able to get to it, have to get to the gate or whatever the security is, and all that fun stuff. So that's just to keep that in mind too, please.
Thank you. So I see Marcel has a question. Can people who own homes, single family homes, install EV chargers at their homes? And if yes, what is the process?
Yeah, I can answer that. So yes, they can. They can either do just a level 1 charger, which I was talking about, where usually the charger just comes with the car. So they're able to just plug into that, you know, standard outlet. But typically people do buy a level 2 charger, and usually we have an installer database at efficiencymaine.com, and you can just go to that installer database, click that you want to look for someone who installs an electric vehicle charger, and then get in contact with that installer, and they'll be able to install a level 2 charger into your home.
Did I see someone else was starting to put their hand up? Oh, Sarah, go ahead.
I had a question for Jill, but I just, to add to the e-bike conversation in Portland, I saw on I'm a lurker on the bike pedestrian committee listserv, and I think the city is also talking about some kind of e-bike incentive. Maybe they're just starting, but I wonder if, Carrie, if that's like another conversation to sort of layer into the city's work, if that's possible. Anyway, Jill, sure. Jill, I wondered just if you have any examples from here in Maine where it's probably like the report just came out, or I don't know when it came out, but where you're in dialogue with a site, whatever site that might be, where people are trying to work on accessibility issues or retrofit, or I just was curious about like any local context for, or like, oh my gosh, this is an egregious violation. And so I'm just sort of curious.
For adding EV charging stations at existing sites?
Well, for accessibility issues at existing sites, or like they're ahead of the game trying to think about how to make new installations accessible. Do you know what I mean?
So I was hoping that maybe somebody on this group could share an example, because all the examples that I have, other than the one I put in the slide, are not good examples.
Yeah.
And I know people I've talked to, and I appreciate, you know, saying that, you know, you have to follow the ADA, but what I see when I drive around, including that one example I included of the new installation at East End Elementary School in Portland, I don't see any consideration for accessibility anywhere in Maine. I appreciate this group giving me an opportunity to present, and hopefully spread the word to other people as they talk about installing them. Yeah, because I mean, it's a huge opportunity to allow people the choice to get an EV charging or EV car so they can charge it, and having the opportunity to charge it at your house is huge, because then you don't have to deal with gas stations that are a real pain if you can't get out of your vehicle quickly, or so I could see incentives for people wanting to do more EV cars. but they need it also when they're going out shopping, public trails, wherever it is.
Okay. We can be on the lookout too for ones that are magically accessible, right?
Well, that's the thing, that if you know of any that are in the planning stage or in permitting stage, this is where we can catch it and say,
Yeah.
hey, this is a little steep spot, or hey, how am I going to get from the back of the parking lot all the way to the entrance? Because most of the times people have that, or I've had conversations with LL Bean, if you've ever seen their charging station on the back of the building. How do I get to the entrance all the way around the building from those EV charging stations? So it's, unfortunately, we didn't catch it quick enough, but hopefully we'll catch it now. And I am talking with a local representative who is interested in submitting a bill for EV charging station accessibility requirements. Other states have done it. If we can do it before the federal law does it, then it makes it clear that these are the requirements, you have to address it, so it doesn't get missed on all these new projects. So keep your eye out for that, or if you want to support it, let me know and I'll get you in touch with that representative, because that seems like a no-brainer, just to put it in the books, make it clear that if you're going to do it, you gotta provide access.
Thank you, Jill. And I see that Diane has her hand up and Joe has a question. I wanted to just respond to this topic that was going to be one of my questions, was what role can Moving Maine play and Moving Maine members. And I think that supporting that bill, supporting some kind of awareness raising about how important this is. So we can ponder that some more. I'm going to go to Joe's question about, and this is a good one because I was thinking about larger housing sites. Just saying she's on the board of a subsidized housing for older people and people with disabilities in Ellsworth, and there are 86 apartments. What would be the number of EV stations required for that? And can we recoup electrical costs? And I know there are some of the larger housing, I think maybe Augusta and some of the housing authorities are building into their practice to install them in new construction. So maybe you can talk generally about that, Hope.
Yeah, well, I know that for 86 apartments, there's no requirement of the amount of chargers that you would need. It kind of depends on the amount of people who have EVs and just like the planning process within that community. So that's kind of up to you all. But in terms of recouping electrical costs, you can have a network charger, which means that it is connected to the internet. So someone is able to either use a credit card or have a specific charging card, and that can help recoup electrical costs. So that's usually what people do now. You can get a non-network charger, and that just means that people can charge for free typically, but a network charger is the one that people tend to do, especially for housing complex, just to be able to get those electrical costs back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And on that note, Hope, do you have, I just happen to know that there are conversations, for instance, I remember South Portland Housing Authority talking about it, about building in, or at least putting in conduits when they're doing new construction. Do you know if there are incentives for doing that at all, or, so in multi-unit housing to put in charging?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. That's more of our multifamily section. I don't think so at the moment. I know, yeah, so I would have to get back to you on that. I could ask someone at Efficiency Maine if there is.
Great, thank you. Diane.
Thank you. This is great information, by the way. I appreciate both of you presenting. I do have a question about if the homeowner decides that they want to install, like, let's say, a level 2 charging station. Do you have any information about how long a vehicle will hold its charge? Only because I was thinking about the snow factor and losing power. And then we kind of connect that to maybe safety, to be able to get out of the house if you need to, or get to a safe place, a shelter or whatnot. And I'm just curious about the holding capacity of electronic vehicle.
Yeah, so in the wintertime when you're driving the vehicle, it will lose a little bit more range just because of the battery. We live in Maine, it's a cold place in the winter. But in terms of actually some vehicles can act as a generator for your house. So it'll hold that charge. And so even, well, at least with the Ford 150, and I forget there's another vehicle too now, where if your power goes out, you can actually use your electric vehicle as a generator. And they said that you can actually charge your, or at least light your home and keep the heat going for, 3 days potentially with that. So it can also act as, a large battery or a generator for your home. So, and that technology just keeps getting better. So it's a really cool feature that those EVs have.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Thank you. Laura.
Hi, I have a question. I think it'd be for Hope. We have some of our communities looking into the Rural Level 2 initiative, and I was wondering if you know that if the qualified partners who they'd be working with are aware of the ADA compliances that should be in place, or if that's something that,
Yeah, no, I'm not entirely sure actually. They should be aware of it, but I know that there's no, like Jill was saying, there's no specific guidelines in the ADA currently for EV charging stations. But to be able to inform them either through us or someone else, I think that would be really helpful after hearing this conversation.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and can I just add to that lots of times contractors or engineers will say, oh yeah, we know the ADA, but their work doesn't show it. So definitely double check or have them show you that they know it or that they're addressing it, because everybody's interpretation of ADA is a little different sometimes. But.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, this strikes me as seems like a potential opportunity to team up on some awareness raising about it, or if we, my wheels are just kind of turning in my head, but a little slowly of, is it putting out something that could go out to to municipalities, or I don't know, but I'm seeing some nodding heads, so that could be something we follow up about, because it does seem like step one is making sure there's an understanding of how it's done. And I was thinking at my former workplace at Greater Portland Council of Governments, there are 2 EV chargers, and they're definitely not accessible. And just like picturing, start with the info that Jill shared. It's like something, starting to tune into, oh yeah, how would a person ever get out of their car, plug it in and get to the door? So just things that people don't think about because it's not something that they have to personally experience. So making that visible to decision makers.
Right. And the other thing just to add to that is just the actual cord or cable itself and the weight of it. So as Hope was describing the different levels, the cords get bigger and heavier and in the way or a trip hazard. So definitely which unit you're purchasing is also really key and important. So just to keep that in mind as well. Now as more and more different products are coming out, hopefully they will address accessibility better, but not always the case. So.
Great, so we are almost out of time, and I would just invite if folks have any information they were hoping to share beyond the content of the presentations, to feel free to share that now. And while you're thinking about it, I'll just put in a plug that we are convening working groups around policy, and I think we would love to have any and all folks who are interested in being part of that, and you can just shoot me an email if you want to get involved. And big thank you to Jill and Hope for being here today. I think this was sort of like the 101. I think probably we're all having additional questions arise. And so we'll send out those PowerPoint slides with their information if you want to follow up with questions or comments to them. Did anybody have info they were hoping to share today before we wrap it up?
I have a quick question, Zoe.
Sure.
Do you know, just for Harper and Jill, do you have any statistics about the minimum or maximum of miles that EVs can make based on the battery capacities?
Yeah, the total range for
When it's
electric
fully
vehicles.
charged, yes, when it's fully charged, what is the minimum or maximum, like based on, I know they have a different battery capacity.
Yeah. So it depends on the make, and it also depends if it's a battery electric versus a plug-in electric hybrid vehicle. So a plug-in one typically has up to like 20 or 30 miles of electric range, but they can have up to like 500 miles of range overall when that gas engine kicks in. And then in terms of a battery electric vehicle, those can have, I think, from 100 miles of range up to probably like 350. So it's, it's a lot typically, and it depends, like I was saying, in the snow, when it's colder, your range will drop, but there's ways to make sure that you can still, get to your work, get to the grocery store on a charge. And sometimes that means heating your steering wheel and your seats instead of putting your, hot air on blast. But there's ways to do it in the winter where you're able to still have a really good charge.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We look forward to coming back together in January, and Joe will be one of our featured presenters, and we'll be talking about volunteer driver programs. Look forward to updates on the policy work. We have some cool things in the works, and I'll be figuring out how we can, I'll probably be following up with you, Jill, on how we can support accessibility with charging stations and beyond. So thanks all. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.